guys, welcome back to Aviation Explainer today. In this episode, we'll be discussing the US tariffs that have come in under the new leadership of Donald Trump, which is going to be interesting to discuss. And we're also got something very big planned for 100 subscribers, so we are nearing that achievement at the moment. Now, it may not be exactly 100 when we release this massive update, but when we do, you will find out, and it's going to be the 100 subscriber milestone. So to start today, let's get started. The effects of the US tariffs on aviation can be significant, impacting both the aviation industry and airlines in various ways. From cost increase to trade relations and the industry competition, tariffs are essentially taxes imposed on imports and exports between countries, and when the US implements tariffs on foreign goods, it can have ripple effects throughout the industry, including aviation. These effects can vary depending on the type of goods and services being taxed, the countries involved, and the nature of the trade relation. Here's a breakdown of how US tariffs influence the aviation industry. 1. Increased costs for airlines and aircraft manufacturers. One of the most direct effects of tariffs on the aviation industry is the increase of costs for airlines and aircraft manufacturers, which may lead to higher prices for imported goods. Aircraft manufacturers such as Boeing relying on a global supply chain of parts and materials. Tariffs being imported, example aluminium, steel, and composite materials, could increase the cost of building new aircraft or maintaining existing ones. Higher aircraft prices. If the price of components or raw materials goes up due to tariffs, the overall cost of producing new airplanes for either domestic or international airlines increases. Airlines may pass on these higher costs in passenger form of higher ticket prices or service fees. Maintenance and parts of costs. Airlines also rely on imported parts for their fleets. Tariffs on those components, whether it's an engine, avionics, or other specialized parts, could drive up maintenance costs. Airlines with fleets that depend on international suppliers may face higher repair and replacement costs for their aircraft. Impacts on aircraft exports and trade relations. The US aviation industry is a major exporter, especially companies like Boeing, with its competitiveness and globally with Airbus, based in the EU, and the effects of US tariffs on aircraft exports can include retaliatory tariffs. If the US imposes tariffs on foreign goods, countries affected by these tariffs may retaliate by imposing their own tariffs on US exports. In the case, aviation countries like China and EU or Canada could impose on US-made aircraft. For instance, Boeing aircraft could become more expensive for international buyers, affecting Boeing's market share and revenue. Trade tensions. Tariffs can create tensions between trading nations. For example, when the US or EU engaged in a long-running dispute over subsidies, Boeing and Airbus tariffs were imposed on both aircraft manufacturers. This not only hurt sales but also disrupted the stability of international aviation market, leading to uncertainty. Slower growth for exporters. If tariffs lead to decreased demand for US aircraft abroad due to higher prices or trade relations, US aviation manufacturer may struggle with slower growth or fewer orders. This could affect jobs, production, and overall competitiveness on the international market. 3. Disruptions of supply chains. The aviation industry relies on global supply chains to manufacture and maintain aircraft, and tariffs can disrupt these supply chains. Costly delays. Tariffs on imported components can lead to delay in production and delivery schedules. For example, if components such as engines, fuselages, or wings are delayed at customs due to tariffs, an entire production process can be set back. Increased complexity. Airlines and manufacturers may need to find alternative suppliers to mitigate the impacts of tariffs, which could increase complexity in sourcing and managing parts for aircraft construction, and maintenance can lead to inefficiencies and longer lead times for new aircraft or repairs. Operational strain. The aviation industry operates on a tight timeline, and precise disruptions in supply chains, whether due to tariffs or retaliatory trade policies, could affect airlines and operations, leading to delays, higher costs, and even service interruptions. Change in consumer travel costs. Tariffs can indirectly influence consumer behavior, including air travel. Higher ticket prices. If tariffs lead to higher costs for airlines, such as higher fuel price due to tariffs imported on oil or higher costs for aircraft, airlines may pass this cost on to consumers by increasing ticket prices or adding extra fees. This could include higher overall costs for travellers, potentially reducing demand for air travel, especially in price-sensitive markets, increased baggage fees or auxiliary costs. So to offset the operating costs, airlines may look to increase fees for checked baggage, in-flight services, seat selection, and other aspects of air travel. This can make it more expensive to fly for consumers and discourage demand. Impact on international aviation alliances. Airlines such as Star Alliance, SkyTeam, and Oneworld could be affected by the tariffs in the following ways. Trade tensions affecting joint ventures Many international airlines from joint ventures or code-sharing agreements to reduce operating costs and enhance service offerings. If tariffs disrupt trade between countries, lead to deterioration of diplomatic relations. This could also affect those partnerships. For example, tariffs between the US and the European Union. Airlines in these regions may consider joint ventures or face higher operational costs for cross-Atlantic flights. Currency fluctuations. Tariffs often caused fluctuation in currency exchange rates. Airlines that operate internationally, particularly those in alliances, may be affected by these fluctuations, as it impacts their profits when earning revenue in a foreign currency and converting it to their home currency. Effects on international tourism. Tariffs can impact the global tourism market, which in turn affects aviation. Lower demand for international flights. If tariffs between countries make travel more expensive, tourists may decide to use less or choose destinations that are more affordable. For example, if the US imposes taxes on foreign goods, travelers from countries with retaliatory tariffs may be discouraged from visiting the US and reducing the demand for inbound flights. Changes in travel patterns. Similarly, the US tourists might choose to travel to countries where fewer and lower tariffs. If foreign nations impose tariffs on American goods, travelers might avoid destinations that seem more expensive as a result. Challenges for low-cost carriers. Low-cost carriers which operate on tight margins and rely on economies of scale can also be significantly affected by tariffs. Increased operational costs. Many LCCs rely on global supply chain for aircraft parts as well as fuel imports. Tariffs can inflate these costs, making it more challenging for them to maintain their low-cost structure and potentially eroding their pricing advantages. Ticket prices increase. LCCs generally compete based on offering cheaper tickets. If tariffs force them to increase their operational costs, they may have to raise their ticket prices, which could weaken their market position and reduce their competitiveness. Global air freight and cargo. The air freight sector is highly dependent on international trade, and tariffs can have a significant effect. Increased shipping costs. If tariffs are imposed on goods being transported by air, this can increase shipping costs for companies relying on air freight. This could reduce demand for air cargo services, leading to fewer flights dedicated to freight, and lower revenues for airlines that rely on cargo as a significant part of their business. Shifts in supply chain dynamics. As manufacturers face a higher tariff, they switch from air freight to sea or rail to reduce costs, which could result in a decreased demand for air cargo services. In conclusion, the summary is the US tariffs can have a far-reaching impact on the aviation industry, including increased operational costs for airlines, disruptions in the global supply chain, higher prices for consumers, and strained trade relations. While the immediate effects may vary depending on specific tariffs and the industries affected, the long-term consequences could increase airfares, slower growth in air travel, and change the global competitiveness in the landscape. Airlines and manufacturers and consumers all alike need to adapt to these changes, which could shape the future of international travel and trade in the aviation sector. Please leave your comment, as I would love to understand what you think on this and whether I am right and you are right, or who's right and who's wrong. I'd be quite interested to find out, so leave a comment. Thank you.